Hi everyone, this is my video blog for July 2018. It's been a while since I did a video blog, so sorry about that. Just been a little bit busy traveling around. I wanted to talk about on this little video blog, I want to talk about the World Gas Conference. The World Gas Conference was held in Washington, D.C. last month, or earlier in July, sorry. And it was actually quite interesting. There was a lot of interesting things that were discussed, and I thought some of these things are worth sharing with all of you. This World Gas Conference is probably the biggest gas event of the year. I think the media said there were 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And interestingly enough, it was really all about LNG. You know, the gas industry is no longer the pipeline and gas business. It seemed it's really about LNG. So the World Gas Conference was more like the World LNG Conference in my view. So a couple of key insights from that conference. First, it really is about American LNG now. American LNG is becoming the place where everybody's looking at to get LNG. There were buyers from all over the world, and the one thing on their mind was to figure out which American LNG projects they should buy from. So I think the days of American LNG having to sell itself, I think are quite in the past, because it seems like American LNG is selling itself automatically. There's buyers from Asia, from Middle East, from Africa, from Europe, everybody, and Latin America. Everybody's wondering where the world is going to get its LNG from. So this is the kind of stuff that we've been talking about for a while, of course. American gas has a lot going for it at this point, more than in the past. Number one is really the massive continuous rise in resource. Not only is the fields that we hear about in the Marcellus and Eagle Ford, these fields are rising. The gas production is growing, the local demand is staying the same, so it's really LNG is where the gas is going to go. But it really was all about the Permian. So let me tell you guys a bit about what the Permian is all about. So the Permian is a very, very old, mature oil and gas basin in West Texas. I think it's been producing for 100 years. I've been there many times. And there's an incredibly interesting oil and gas museum there that talks about the history of the Permian. So the Permian is probably one of the most densely drilled areas in the world. And there's incredible amount of infrastructure. So what is really surprising is how in this very densely drilled area, we continuously find new and new resources. This is blowing everybody's mind, because you know, you would think that you're not going to find new reserves in places that are very mature. And there's probably no place in the world as mature as the Permian in terms of the number of wells that are drilled and the amount of data that's been taken out and the continuous production over the last 100 years. But the fact is, companies continue to find massive resources. A great example, of course, is Apache, that a few years ago found the 75 TCF Alpine High field. And that's already in production as far as I can see. But the continuously new and new discoveries. And so the World Gas Conference, everybody was saying, what's the deal with the Permian? And as far as I can see, the Permian gas is just going to grow and grow and grow. The production levels are going to continue to grow if the pipeline situation can be taken care of. Right now, we are at a situation where the pipeline capacity is what's limiting how much gas can be taken out of the Permian. The Permian is relatively isolated. The closest markets are probably in South Texas or Southwest Texas, and in places like Houston, Southeast Texas and places like Houston, because there are not many pipelines going the other way, heading west from the Permian to California and west. So the gas really has to go towards Houston or towards Mexico, and Houston on north. But of course, that's where you hit the gas coming in from the Marcellus and the Haynesville and some of the other large fields pushing down on it. So we are in a situation where the Permian gas production levels could rise more dramatically if there was a market for it and if the pipeline capacity was enough. So why are people continuing to drill in the Permian? Well, it's because there's associated gas. Most of the gas being produced in the Permian, it is associated gas. By associated gas, we mean the gas that is produced at the same time you produce oil. So the drillers there are actually motivated to produce oil. Oil prices are relatively high, as you know, $70 WTI. That's enough to get people excited about drilling more for oil. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, oil production comes with a lot of associated gas. And now there's too much gas for the pipelines to handle. There's way too much gas for any local market. And so the producers are either forced to shut in their oil production, get special permissions to flare the gas, or to look at ways in the future of monetizing this gas. And that's why I think the US LNG has some interesting things, because every few years the story keeps on changing. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was all about the Marcellus. The Marcellus is, of course, the field in eastern US, northeast US, near Pennsylvania. And that was feeding into projects like Cove Point and heading south towards the Cheniere and the Sabine and the Louisiana projects. And at that point, I think I may have told you the Marcellus was going to be the world's largest field, maybe bigger than Qatar even. Well, now we're looking at the Permian being bigger than the Marcellus. So where is all that gas going to go? There's only a few places it can go, as I said. It can go to the local domestic market in Texas, and there's not much at all. It can go north of Texas, north and east of Texas, but that's being pushed against this prolific Marcellus shale. Or it has to go south. And south, it can either go towards the few LNG plants that are being built along the US South Gulf Coast, the 3 in Brownsville, including Texas LNG, and the 1 in Corpus Christi. Or it can go further south all the way into Mexico. Now, the situation in Mexico is quite uncertain. We had the Mexican elections last week. It's not clear how many more American or international companies will be willing to invest into new pipeline infrastructure into Mexico. And Mexico is actually going to get quite a bit of American gas as is. It's not clear that they need much more gas. And if the new president of Mexico manages to revive the domestic gas production in the Burgos and the offshore regions, then Mexico will have plenty of gas of its own. Mexico is actually being constrained by how much infrastructure it has within its country now. So really, where is the Permian gas going to go? It has to go towards the US South Texas LNG projects. And that's great for people like Texas LNG, because we could be looking at a situation where not only is the Permian gas a lot cheaper than the Henry Hub prices that we all hear about, it could actually be literally given away for free. If the Permian gas, why would gas ever be for free, you ask? Well, because producers want to produce oil, and they need to get rid of the gas if they want to produce more oil. So we could be in a situation, if the production levels continue in the Permian, that in a couple of years, we could be having more gas than we know what to do with in the Permian, and the Permian gas actually given away for free for someone to take it away. That will be an incredible benefit for American LNG, especially American LNG projects in the South. This is a long-term trend enough that many other companies at the World Gas Conference were talking about building pipelines directly from the Permian, maybe 1,000-kilometer pipelines all the way to Louisiana, where the other LNG centers are going to be. So the fact is, people are now talking about linking the Permian fields to the Henry Hub prices. Building 1,000-kilometer or 600-mile pipeline tells me that people expect the Permian gas to continue. And that's great for people like Texas LNG. On our own estimates, we expect Texas LNG gas now to be delivered into Asia 70 to 80 to even $1 cheaper than Henry Hub gas delivered to Asia. And that's fantastic news for us and for the other projects in the South Texas region. The other big theme, of course, of the conference was the second wave of US LNG. The first wave are the projects that are under construction or already in operation. We have 2 projects under operation. The Sabine Pass, multiple trains, and Cove Point. Within the next 6 months, we should have Freeport. We should have Cameron come online, and then Elba Island soon thereafter. What about the second wave? Well, the middle of the second wave, or the beginning of the second wave, is going to be probably projects like Golden Pass, which are political. I don't see Exxon or Qatar really aggressively marketing these projects. They'll see them in their portfolio and sell them on their regular basis to their customers, probably on oil-linked contracts. So any customer buying from a Qatar or Exxon portfolio may end up just buying, whether they like it or not, oil-linked prices, but the Exxon and Qatar will make massive price differentials by buying it on the US hub prices. So if I was a customer looking to contract with Exxon or Qatar, I would demand to know that if they are going to supply any gas from Golden Pass, they should demand to get Henry Hub prices or US gas prices, not oil prices, because that's where Exxon and Qatar are going to make a lot of money. So the real second wave of the projects are the projects that have not been fully permitted as yet. These are the projects like Texas LNG, Venture Global, Rio Grande, Corpus Christi, the multiple future trains, etc., etc. These are the projects that, for the most part, do not have their permits. The permit process has been delayed in the US. We know it's going to ultimately happen. It is frustrating for all of us why it's taken so long, and we have no idea when it will happen. We can only hope the process moves along quickly, because it seems the government is just causing unnecessary delays. But when it does happen, it's really interesting to see which projects are out there, because now it's very clear most of the second wave projects are mega projects. You know, the smallest ones are 8 million tons, maybe 10, 12, 14, 18, I've seen 27. This is crazy. In my view, most of the second wave projects are done by companies that have no LNG experience. It's like saying, I've never run a race before, but I'm going to go run a marathon tomorrow and win. I think it's ludicrous that these companies think that they can convince the market that they can produce projects that are 27 million tons. And I don't think the market needs it. All the customers that I talked to last week or 2 weeks ago in the World Gas Conference were looking for smaller volumes. So if I was a bigger project, there's not many customers looking for large volume. I think we'll be in a world of trouble. Texas LNG, of course, we are a smaller project, 2 million tons first phase, 2 million tons second phase. Lots of customers interested in that kind of volume. That's great for us. So a lot of what bothered me a little bit was the fact that now there's some dishonesty in the business. It seems that companies, especially second wave companies, are promising things that I don't see how they can deliver. There are companies that are promising really, really low tolling fees, and there's no way that their capital cost can be that much lower than anybody else. So I would be buyer beware. There's a lot of what they call in America bait and switch, where you will get the customer interested in a low price, and when he's ready to buy, then you might switch the price to something higher. But I don't see how some of these, I mean, I heard people saying things like $1.70, $2, $2.20. These are very, very hard to achieve prices, especially from companies that have no track record. And I see the big players of the world signing up to this, and I feel that's very surprising, because you're buying from unknown companies prices that are probably too good to be true. And as your mother always said, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. So I don't have a lot of faith in that. And there's also a lot of games being played. You know, of course, one of the big companies, I don't have to mention their name, is offering a really weird type of contract where you give them $1.5 billion and they give you 1 million tons of LNG at OPEX only. Yeah, but $1.5 billion actually buys you 2 million tons of capacity in projects like Texas LNG. So all you're really doing is subsidizing this company by paying for a 2 million train, only taking 1 million tons and letting them sell the 1 million tons against you to your competitors or to the open market. So, you know, of course, this company is advertising to the world, hey, we have, you know, $3 gas on the water that includes the OPEX and the price of the upstream, but they don't talk about the fact that you paid $1.5 billion for it, and the $1.5 billion bought them 2 million tons of capacity. So to me, we are seeing the lack of transparency in the business a little bit. And what the great thing about American gas was going to be unchained. The LNG chain was going to be broken with transparent parts along the way, transparent pricing. And now we have the same companies or different companies no longer being transparent, bundling the upstream, the pipeline all together into one price, and basically being very untransparent about this price. So a very disturbing trend that we're actually going away from the transparency that people like Cheniere initially started, but not anymore. I don't know what the Cheniere current contracts are. They don't tell them anymore. In the old days, they used to reveal their contract prices. Why are they not doing that? I think because they are trying to exploit the customer. So we need to go back, and the customers need to demand transparent pricing again, which is what American Gas was all about, and unbundling. We need to unbundle upstream from the liquefaction, from the pipeline. That's what we did in the past. That's what we should do. That's kind of my view on that. So honesty is something that we need. The other big thing, of course, in the World Gas Conference I heard was really the move away from CapEx projects. You know, in the old days, every Shell exhibit in a big exhibition used to have pictures or models of the Prelude FLNG and all the other plants around the world. This time there was none of that. No big super major was advertising its current projects in a big way like they used to. I think the super majors are realizing they make a lot more money on the trading aspect of the business than actually the CapEx. So we didn't see a big display on Shell Canada. We didn't see Exxon talking about PNG. We didn't see any of that stuff like you would see. The biggest booths were the startup companies, you know, who I think was spending way too much money trying to impress I don't know who, but it didn't show to me that they were in a startup culture. They were not good custodians of their investors' money by wasting a lot of it in very large fancy booths. I mean, the biggest booths were not Shell or Exxon. They were the startups that have no revenue, so which is also a disturbing trend. So it's all about marketing, it's all about gimmicks, it's all about flash. And that's not what the LNG business needs to go to. LNG business needs to become a commodity, needs to be transparent, and needs to be low price. That's not what we're seeing. So overall, I was very excited to see so many buyers interested in buying gas. I was not happy to see some of the behavior of my competitors. And I think that it's also true that there was not that many non-US projects really promoting. I think Mozambique is, of course, one of the few that seems to go ahead. I can't really recall any other big major non-US LNG new project being promoted at the World Gas Conference. So, interesting times ahead, as always. Looks like, you know, just kind of, I'm going to end this vlog on a little bit of a note about what's going on. The political climate is very uncertain. I don't have any idea what the Trump or the American policy towards American or Chinese policy or European policy towards LNG is going to be. All we can hope for is LNG continues to be open, transparent, freely traded, and in a commoditized world where the lowest price leader should win. Thank you again. Bye.